Welcome to the Client Generation Podcast, a show where we interview some of the most successful people in real estate to help you understand how to generate leads, build a brand, and convert more clients in your business. What's up, everybody? Grant Wise here. Welcome to the Client Generation Podcast. I am very excited today to be having a conversation with Shivani Peterson, who is the number one LO in her company. And she's going to talk a little bit more about which company, but I just so excited to have a conversation with her. And she has done such a phenomenal job executing as a loan officer with video content. And I wanted to reach out and have a conversation with her so that you all could listen and get some takeaways. So Shivani, thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks. I'm super honored that you think my videos are good enough to warrant people wanting to hear about them.
Absolutely. Well, give everybody the short story. Who are you and how did you get to where you are today as number one in the whole company and the whole country?
So I've only known, it's early in the year, let the record show. So I'm still hyped up on this achievement. So yeah, I'm with All Western Mortgage, and in 2020 was the top producing loan officer in the entire company. And I'm very, very proud of it. First woman to get that within All Western Mortgage, and it was a huge goal of mine. So previously, the year before, not knowing what 2020 was going to look like, I was at the holiday party for 2019, and they were announcing the top 5 loan officers, and I didn't make it, and I was pissed. So I had to change it.
Oh, that's awesome. What did you do to change it? I'm sure everybody's curious.
Well, so it was a storm of a bunch of perfect factors lining up, like the stars aligning, because starting in 2018 is when I started using social media to grow my business. And so then I had a good foundation laid there so that when we headed into a time period where people were really looking for a mortgage advisor rather than a loan officer, which was a lot of how COVID impacted our industry, is that people they didn't need a call center LO. They needed someone to actually help them through the crisis. So then those market conditions aligned with a marketing platform that I had already put into place, and it all worked out.
I love it. Now you guys have been, I say you guys because you have 2 brothers that I know. I met Arjun. I was speaking at Agent 2021 in Miami. We connected, and he walked up and he's passionate. He was talking to me about content and is very serious. And I just loved and appreciated everything about him. And we met because he invited me out to speak in San Francisco last year. So 2020, right before everything kind of went down in February, we met in San Francisco. And you all have really just gone all in on video content. So first of all, why? Why make that big push with video as a social media marketing strategy?
So Arjun and Neil have ridden a couple waves, through where we've been really busy in the industry and then things seriously quiet down. I mean, they were doing this before the Great Recession. So they have a lot of experience with market conditions and market waves. For me personally, and it kind of relates to why they did it, I've been in the industry 9 years, but I really had to build my business twice. So I did it once when I first started, with the help of a refinance boom. Following the Great Recession, we were doing a ton of FHA streamlines. And then, cold calling Zillow leads, which nothing will make you lose your will to live faster. And third, schmoozing realtors. And realtors are mean to lenders. We're the bottom of the totem pole. They don't have time for us. But that's how I did it. I did those things. It was painful, and I built a business. And then the month I had my first son, I was number 3 in the country. So I was on the top producers list getting there. And then things changed. What was important to me and my time changed. I had another kid, and I was still in the mortgage industry, but being a top producer wasn't a priority for me. Well, 2018 comes along, and Neil and me and Arjun are talking. We're we want to dominate. We want to dominate this. We don't want to do it the same way. We're sick of asking realtors for their business. We want to start generating the business ourselves and passing it out. So we decided to use social media to tell people who we were, because we feel like we're the best in our markets, but we need people to know that. And what easier way to tell them than on social media?
100%. Why video though? What was the draw to creating content? Was it just because nobody else was doing it and you saw a niche there?
Nobody else was doing it in the mortgage sphere, in our markets at least. Mm-hmm. And it's an amazing way to connect with people. So you can put out a video on your social channels, right? And it's like you cold called 1,500 people. Because, you know,
Such a
the
good way to
science
think
of
about
cold
it.
calling is that you've got to have multiple touches with someone before they're going to trust you. So you got to keep calling. But every time I put out a piece of content, I've put that video out to my whole sphere. It's like I've cold called all of them.
I've been doing this now for like 8 years, and that is without question the single greatest way I've ever heard that put is like you dropping a video is like cold calling 1,500 people at once. That's awesome. I'm going to use that. So I'll give you some of the cred as I do it.
I'll be
That's
watching
awesome.
you, Grant,
Yes,
to make sure I get the credit.
I'll CC in all of my social media posts as I put that up. So video content gave you guys really like a big opportunity to go into a market and stand out doing something that nobody else was doing. How did it change things for you though? I mean, I get that, like what you just said, maybe that's the answer, but would it really genuinely allow you to pivot from chasing people to now people were coming to you? How did all that shake out?
So it wasn't like it's not like I automatically just started putting out videos about anything and everything. I wanted to be specific with my content because I wanted to use my content to attract people that I would actually like working with. Because remember, back up, I was tired of realtors shitting on me. So I wanted to enjoy my job more, which you're going to like your job more when you work with people you like.
Yes.
So if I can use my social media to show people who I am really, then already they feel like, the kind of people who are going to reach out to me as a response to these content pieces are probably people I'm going to get along with. Like we were jiving, we connected in some way through my content. So I sat down and was like, what is my mission? And why do I do what I do? And once I figured that out, I just geared all my content to go out from there. And so at first it wasn't necessarily that people had seen my content and were like, oh, I need a refinance or I need a pre-approval and I'm going to call you cousin. But the secondary effects were that a realtor had seen my content. So then when we got introduced by someone else, it was a warmer introduction and they were already more open to talking to me. Or when they got a pre-approval from a buyer and it had my name on it, they were like, oh, I know this girl. I've seen her stuff online. She's legit. So those were the sort of impacts it had at first before it was like direct leads reaching out as a result of the social media. It was more that people knew who I was because of it.
And that in and of itself has to be a contributing factor to, the way that you're able to develop relationships with agents moving forward, I would imagine, is that not only are you an LO that has a great reputation, a good brand, and, therefore pretty well known, but also now you're getting business kind of direct to consumer and you're able to reciprocate to agents that maybe have been feeding you business. You can turn around, you can kind of do the same thing. How did that change? I know we were talking about how realtors and the relationship can be, but did that pivot the way your agent relationships, did they finally start getting better where your agent relationships are a little bit better than they were because of that?
For sure. So after about the first year of doing the content, I started having realtors reach out to me and say, hey, I love what you're putting out. I love the way you're educating people. I'd like to sit down and see how we can help each other and see if we're a good fit. And I was like,
oh, weird.
That's crazy.
No more donuts, no more office visits, nothing like that.
No more you pretending like you didn't know that something just popped up on your schedule and have to bail on me last minute.
Yes,
I mean, it was such a nice change of pace to not be in that position. And it has been awesome to be able to give leads back to people because now I have them.
Yeah, that's great. One of the things that you said a second ago is you said, I didn't want to just go out, I didn't want to just go put out content about everything. I wanted to use my content to attract people I actually wanted to work with. And you said the first thing you did was you got really clear on why you were doing it. But can you elaborate a little bit further? Like if I'm an LO or even a real estate agent thinking about creating video content, I see where maybe step one is figuring out, maybe why I'm doing this and so on and so forth. But we tell people all the time, you've got to know who you are marketing to. When did that come up for you? Did it come up like right at the beginning or did it come up after you figured out why? Can you talk me through how you really developed who your kind of avatar was and how did you start creating content for them?
So when I sat down and thought about my mission, I realized that the thing I enjoy most is educating people. So then I knew right away that I'm going to make my content educational and informational, not salesy. Like I'm not going to do the call me, my rates are the best, I have the best product. I'm going to educate you. Like people feel uncomfortable talking about their money. So you'll notice that all of my content is about creating more transparency in financial advice so that people can really feel like they understand what I'm saying and it pertains to them. So once I started like figuring out what I wanted people to know, then all the time, like you'll be driving around and you'll be talking to a realtor and you're like, oh, that's a great content piece because that's my point. That's what I'm trying to get people to understand. Or you're having a conversation with a client and you're like, this actually applies to a ton of people. I'll create a content piece about it so that I can share what they just learned with more.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I just did a Facebook Live like, I don't know, like an hour ago. People keep asking like, how do I know what content to create? And I was like, look, what I do is I take the questions that you're asking me and I create videos about them. Like that's really how I get most of my content ideas is agents will ask me questions. I'll say, oh, okay, I'm going to add that to my list of dozens of questions I get asked all the time. And when I'm like, okay, what are my Facebook Live going to be about? Oh, okay, I'm going to go to my list. Oh, here's a question I can ask. Like, but the video that I did a little bit ago is like, this is all I do is I take your questions and I create videos about them. It's the exact same thing that you could do because I'm sure your clients are asking you questions every day. You can take that piece of content, that question, and turn it into a piece of content. And like you said, you can drop it once and then boom, 1,500 people just got to answer your question, which is so much more valuable than doing a lot of the one-to-one stuff.
And the crazy thing I've learned is like, I don't have a ton of followers. I constantly like need to think, I'm not trying to be an Instagram influencer. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to deliver valuable content about who I am through Instagram. And it works. So all the time people reach out to me and they're like, can you help me do my social media like yours? And I help a lot of realtors do it. And they're always hung up on, but I don't have a lot of followers. I'm like, it doesn't matter. How many times have you been to a dinner party and someone's like, oh, I just bought a house. Oh shit, that's what you do. I forgot. I'm so sorry I didn't use you. None of my friends forget what I do because they see it on social media all the time. If they think of a mortgage, they think of me because I've reminded them so many times. That's my goal, is that no one's going to get a mortgage from someone else because they forgot what I do.
I'm constantly promoting the book. It's called 1,000 True Fans. And it's really the idea that an artist can become an icon if they just have 1,000 people that absolutely adore their work. It's not that all 7 billion plus people in the world need to know their work. It's that 1,000 people need to be really passionate about it. I think a lot of people forget that still to this day, even with all the tools and all the lead tricks and all the things that realtors have access to, their business for the most part comes from referrals through word of mouth. And so if you can focus on even the 10 people that know, like, and trust you the most and just build raving fans, those people will help you build a massive company. And I think people forget that because we are so enamored by having 10,000 followers or 100,000 followers or whatever the goal is. Like, no, look, if you just have a few people that love you to death, you probably won't ever have to worry about business.
No, it's 100% true. You just need to make sure your sphere is engaging with your content. You're putting out content that's interesting to them and true to who you really are. And it doesn't matter how many likes or comments you get on it.
How do you get people to watch your content? Do you just create good videos? Do you promote those things? Like, how are you getting people in your sphere to see your stuff?
So I always put out like content that I feel like is really reflective of who I am. So when they call me, they're going to be interacting with the same person who they saw the video of. That takes practice. You'll get better at doing that over time and creating the video. And then you do need to know certain social media tools, things about the algorithms. I use the Witly platform to boost my videos and to capture leads. And it's really, really effective.
Why is it effective? I know that's like a loaded question for me, but
I didn't. So before I had you guys build out my platform, I didn't know anything about the Facebook ad manager. I was just clicking boost on my videos, which some people say is a complete waste of money. I don't think it's a complete waste of money, but it's not as effective as having a targeted ad campaign like the ones you guys built out for me. So now my videos are being shown through Facebook to people who would actually be interested in that content. And then there's a call to action. I didn't have calls to action before. So then they click on something, they get brought into a lead system, and we continue to follow up with them. which is way better than a Zillow lead who doesn't want to talk to you and has 10 other lenders calling.
I was about to say, how is that impacted? Like, what are the results? What's the byproduct of having people actually coming to you instead of you having to chase people? This goes back to kind of the beginning of the conversation, but
it allows you to give leads back to realtors who will then send you more business because no other lender is giving them business back. And then, I mean, the easiest way I could probably explain without getting into numbers and metrics, because I don't have any of that info, is I literally had to hire a junior LO to call my Witly leads because I couldn't do it myself. That's
awesome. It's a good problem. Especially as you enter 2020, which is the craziest year in modern mortgage history.
It was wild.
Before we got started in the podcast and the pre-show, we were talking about, you had said, 2020 ended up being this incredible year from a production standpoint because everything had just kind of aligned, where you all had put certain systems in place and everything just kind of came together. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that for people that may be listening to this? Because some people, they go to try something and they don't get the results in a month and then they just stop. Like, how long had you all been working on getting all of those systems in place so that when something like this did happen, you were perfectly positioned to win from it?
So 2018 is when I started doing, started this whole mission of using social media, using video, using content to attract clients. So it took about a year of putting out content and building credibility with my audience. 2019, I saw my business triple compared to previous years as a result. And the only thing I had done different was start doing video. And so we saw those results quickly, but 2019, interest rates have started to head down. We've been in a refinance boom for actually quite a long time, where rates kept getting lower and lower and lower. So 2019 had great numbers, but then we had built an audience. I had shared content. I had built rapport with my social media. And then 2020 happened. And it's like all of a sudden they were looking like, hey, we need your content now. We need your advice now. We need your guidance. And so then I started seeing a lot more engagement, and then it just really spiraled.
That's awesome. That's awesome. This whole conversation has been awesome, Shivani. I appreciate you so much for being willing to jump by and share some tips and tricks with our audience. What would be the best way somebody could maybe follow you back or reach out to you if they wanted to connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram at Shiv Peter. I'm on Facebook as well. Just search Shivani Peterson, Mortgage Advisor. And I'd love to connect with everybody.
Love it. Well, I appreciate you and your whole family. Your brothers are, such big contributors. I think not just on a local level, but they do help a lot of people all over the country from a educational standpoint. And just appreciate you, appreciate your family and all you guys do. So thanks for coming on the show. We'll make sure if you're listening to this that we will link up the ways that you can connect with Shivani. I really encourage you to do it. She does put out great videos and great content, and obviously her success speaks for itself. When it comes to the types of results you can expect if you go all in on that type of marketing strategy. So thanks again, Shivani. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. This has been fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Client Generation Podcast. We'll see you on the next one. Peace. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Client Generation Podcast. Please make sure that you rate and review this episode so that we can continue to bring you more incredible guests to help you grow your business. Thanks, and have an amazing day.